He was stunningly rich. He had a $20 million house, his own private island in the Caribbean.
Prince Andrew and the former President Bill Clinton have been named in newly released court documents relating to the sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
Who else was underage?
All of them. Those girls brought other girls too.
It's a trade.
The Palm Beach Police Department received reports of young women going to and from his residence.
You're taught that predators are old men in alleys.
She fed a monster. You had to kind of be a monster to do it.
The guests to Epstein's islands came from across the world and from the highest ranks of society. Celebrities and scientists and members of royal families, touching down in a private jet and then boarding a helicopter to the island. Its owner liked to call it Little St. Jeff. The locals called it Paedophile Island. But what is the truth about Little St. James, the 75-acre private paradise in the US Virgin Islands that billionaire sex abuser Jeffrey Epstein once called home? A criminal complaint from the Attorney General of the US Virgin Islands described it as the perfect hideaway and haven for trafficking young women and underage girls for sexual servitude, child abuse, and sexual assault. On this island, the complaint says, Epstein and his associates could avoid detection of their illegal activity from Virgin Islands and federal law enforcement, and prevent these young women and underage girls from leaving freely and escaping the abuse. Since Epstein's death, hundreds of women from around the world have come forward to say they were sex trafficked to the islands and abused, often while underage, after being promised modeling contracts or better lives by Epstein or one of his cohorts, like ex-girlfriend and fixer Ghislaine Maxwell. The island featured in Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking trial in December. She was convicted of 5 sex trafficking charges and was sentenced to 20 years behind bars, plus a $750,000 fine. Here is everything we know about Little St. James and what Epstein did there. What happened on the island? Little St. James is a small island fringed by coral reefs in the bright blue waters of the US Virgin Islands, with sheltered inlets and forested groves rising to dramatic windswept ridges and craggy cliffs. It lies just off the southeastern tip of St. Thomas, one of the Caribbean archipelago's 3 main islands. The Virgins were purchased from Denmark by the US government at the height of the First World War in order to stop them being used as a German submarine base. Jeffrey Epstein bought Little St. James in 1998 from venture capitalist Arch Cummin via a shell company, reportedly paying just under $8 million. The new owner quickly scoured away all the native vegetation and replaced it with 40-foot palm trees. Starting in 2007, Epstein began a massive program of building and remodeling that drew suspicion from local officials. His main compound nearly doubled in size, sprouting into a plush mansion with an outside terrace connecting the master bedroom and the swimming pool, along with a desalination system. Satellite photos show a sprawling network of terraces, cottages, beach houses, swimming pools, docks, utility buildings, a helipad, a tennis court, slipways, some kind of enclosed lake or lagoon, and various huts of unknown purpose, all connected by palm-lined roads where golf buggies ferried guests from place to place. At the other end from Epstein's manor is a squat, boxy blue and white striped structure often referred to as a temple, surrounded by a terrace with a red labyrinth motif. It previously had a golden dome and 2 gold statues on its roof, which were reportedly torn off in Hurricane Maria. The building differs greatly from Epstein's original planning permit for an octagonal music pavilion and has become a lightning rod for fevered speculation. Theorists have variously described it as the entrance to an underground lair, an altar to an Egyptian deity, a burial ground for his parents, or a site of ritual sexual abuse. But an investigation by Business Insider concluded that it was most likely a private study and music room for Epstein. In 2016, Epstein also bought the neighboring island of Great St. James, about twice as large at 165 acres, allegedly pretending that the real buyer was a Dubai businessman named Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem. Collaborating with accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein greeted a procession of high-powered global figures to the property, including former President Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew. Maxwell, who remains jailed in Florida, helped procure underage girls to satisfy the desires of Epstein and some of his associates. What was life like on the island? In the days before his 2008 conviction, Epstein would visit Little St. James 2 or 3 times a month, staying several days at a time. One former employee described it as a Zen-like retreat, where the financier would stroll around in flip-flops with meditative music playing from speakers and the women often sunbathing topless. There were always women, of course, frequently attractive, sometimes suspiciously young, on the arms of Epstein or one of his many guests, or sometimes ferried over in groups aboard a 38-foot boat called the Lady Ghislaine, reportedly named after Epstein's longtime associate Ghislaine Maxwell. The island had a staff of about 70, from groundskeepers and gardeners through laundry ladies to on-call boat captains. A boat with the letters LSJ was used to ferry staff members and supplies to Little St. They, wore black or white polo shirts, and was sworn to strict secrecy, with instructions to stay out of Epstein's sight when doing their work. They were also forbidden to enter either of Epstein's 2 offices in the main manor, one of which housed a closely guarded steel safe. According to the LA Times, Epstein also had an enthusiasm for pirate treasure, his name for old rum bottles and crockery found about the island. He would pay servants between $100 and $1,000 for interesting finds in good condition. Miles Alexander, who together with his wife Kathy ran the island between 1999 and 2007, told the Daily Mail. He was a very kind man, and while I don't approve of things he's been accused of, I liked him very much. The South African couple described how Epstein did not like to eat meals in front of people, instead taking snacks to eat in his room, where he would also receive daily massages. Disturbing him, there was absolutely forbidden, although they did once find a box of sex toys while he was out. When they were hired, the Alexanders say they were told, "What Jeffrey wants, Jeffrey gets." What did witnesses say about Little St. James? Some air traffic controllers and other airport personnel reported seeing Epstein with girls who appeared they might be preteen. When he was alive, authorities were stopped at the dock and told they could not enter the private property. One 15-year-old alleged victim, however, tried to escape Little St. James by swimming. An alleged victim who spoke to news on the condition of anonymity said Epstein brought her St. Thomas and raped her in his office there. He also trapped me in his bedroom on the island, where he had a gun strapped to his bedpost. I couldn't leave. The only means of getting off the island was either helicopter or boat. So it wasn't a situation where a child or a young woman would be able to just break away and run down the street to the nearest police station. Who did Epstein host on his island? Of course, there were always guests. Among the famous names reportedly hosted by Epstein were theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking, Nobel laureate Lawrence Krauss, comedian Chris Tucker, Victoria's Secret magnate Les Wexner, model Naomi Campbell, former Tony Blair aide Lord Peter Mandelson, and Prince Andrew of the United Kingdom. It has been claimed that Bill Clinton was also a guest, though he denies ever having been there. Donald Trump reportedly flew on one of Epstein's private jets, but it is unclear if he visited the island. The magician David Copperfield is even said to have proposed to supermodel Claudia Schiffer there. Guests would arrive on one of Epstein's Gulfstream jets at Cyril E. King Airport on St. Thomas, in a private area separate from the main runway. They would then be shuttled to Little St. James on one of Epstein's black helicopters. Epstein was fond of treating the guests, like paying for a submarine to be modified to give a seabed tour to Professor Hawking, who had never been underwater before. One former employee described it as like a 5-star hotel where nobody paid. Kathy Alexander remembers Prince Andrew as one of the more gracious visitors, describing him as great fun and very undemanding. One day, he returned from the beach in great mirth. One of his companions had stepped on a sea urchin, and he had urinated on her foot to salve it. Ms. Alexander recalls him slipping her a $350 tip, which was unexpected because other guests didn't. What happened to Epstein's Island? In May, Forbes first reported billionaire Stephen Dekoff bought Little St. James and neighboring 160-acre Great St. James, both formerly owned by Epstein, for $60 million. Multiple villas, pools, and a helipad sit on the islands. Dekoff, founder of private equity firm Black Diamond Capital Management, plans to develop a state-of-the-art, 5-star, world-class luxury 25-room resort on the islands to open in 2025. Was it a pedophile's heaven, or was it just a holiday place for a billionaire? Or do you think something else was happening there? Tell us your thoughts in the comments section.